What? Oh yeah. Well, huh. Greetings, programs. Nice to see you here in the Lair of Knowledge. A delicious elven ale. Come closer. Never mind, don't come any closer. We're here in the Lair of Knowledge because I've realized that to read a book is not the same as knowing a book. To know a book, you must internalize that which was once external. You must make into practice what was only information. Can you imagine what it would take? Pencil, paper, friends, and dice. And alcohol would be nice too. To create a thaumaturgical alchemy that brings the heroic fantasies. Okay, geez, man, how long was that going to go on? Welcome back to Dungeons and Dragons, you guys. A special episode here in the Lair of Knowledge where we learn how to play D&D like big old grown-ass men. Now, what is this all about, Hankerin? It looks like you got a bunch of books around you. Well, if you guys have been watching the required reading series, you know that we like to keep it literary around here. And most of all, make sure that you do plenty of research on other RPG systems. Now, I have gotten a ton of questions all about the ever controversial, ever fascinating contents of this mighty tome. This is the Dungeon Crawl Classics Core Rulebook. And if you guys saw the video where I first reviewed this, read through it, this is really more of an experience than it is a book. This is incredibly inspiring work of art right here. You'll know that from that video, my mind was so utterly blown, I decided to incorporate the magic system from DCC into my D&D 5th edition group. I did so at my peril, and at the peril of my players, who at first had great trepidation around the introduction of any new mechanics. But them being awesome, they were willing to give it a try. Later, I think, without telling me, they became quite frustrated by it. Now, Dungeon Crawl Classics is a game that is highly lethal, and there's a lot of comedy in the lethality. The characters tend to be very disposable, and there's a lot of effects and rules that go into sudden and amazingly fun deaths and story-driven deaths and terrible events like that. To take a 4th level D&D 5th edition magic user, strip him of his powers, and then slowly introduce him to these ones and use knowledge checks and other things for him to rediscover a set of spells. At first, there was a great novelty, especially when the characters were in great peril and they didn't have that magic nuke they were used to having. But what I realized over the course of 2 or 3 sessions is that instead of giving magic a mystery and an unpredictability and an air of incredibility, instead I gave one player very few things to do. And so for the story, yes, actually in retrospect, it is a fantastic piece of our story about basically how the time rift robbed the world of spells and robbed the world of the gods. And this element as a piece of our history is priceless. But for the day-to-day life of an adventuring wizard to be brought so low and be beholden to spell quality rolls, which run the DCC spell system, and to be newly introduced to spell burn, I mean, right off the bat, my wizard was just going for these maximum huge spell burns for the thrill of doing it. Now, was it awesome? Yes. But the number of things that he had to do in the game was greatly reduced, and the amount of control that he had over those things was reduced. This is a person who's been poring over his D&D books, knowing the systems, learning the rules, and then suddenly to scramble it, I'm going to have to say, not the best idea. Now, being adventuresome and always want to explore, I still think it was a great idea. But we gathered the tribunal. The tribunal is basically where me and my players gather outside the game table, like at a bar or restaurant, and we talk about what's going well with the game and what that we'd like to see changed. It was pretty unanimously voted that doing the DCC spell system, though novel and interesting and comical, was not really going to lead to any kind of meaningful progression. So we've pretty much ditched it. My God, Hankerin Fernail, but you got all fired up about this. Like, I spent my $50 and now you're gonna change your story. No, actually no. You got to get this book. This book is a key resource for mining flavor. There is just flavor oozing out of this thing. This is a freaking Lil Smoky. This is a matzo ball of role-playing goodness. So get the book. You don't have to incorporate the systems into your game, but at the very least, you've got to absorb the flavor that these guys accomplish in the book. So that's my update to the DCC Core Rulebook review. You still totally need to buy that book to be a badass, but as far as integrating DCC Magic into a D&D 5th edition campaign, especially a late stage campaign where it's, well, not late stage, mid stage, where your characters are 5th level, they don't want to be scrambled. They want predictable progression, and they want to like learn and know the game better and better and evolve. There is more in the Cave of Knowledge. Was it the Cave of Knowledge or the Lair of Knowledge? I can't remember. There's more. I also reviewed this book a few months ago, Dungeon World. Since reviewing this book, now I still stand by my review, which is basically, these guys are brilliant. The game mechanics in Dungeon World are absolutely freaking brilliant. You've got to get this book. It will change everything, the way you think about streamlining your game. But they messed up the book because it's got a lot of derivative information in it, like their monsters are kind of meh. I stand by that review, but after having a few months to read through this much more, to integrate some of these mechanics into my game, and to read this in more detail and try some of their scenarios in more detail and look at the support that they've been giving to their community in the form of content, I gotta say, this is great. If we weren't already neck deep in a D&D campaign, I would really love to run a Dungeon World game. So life is long, there will be time, and we will do that again. So Dungeon World, you are getting better and better with age. I'm very, very impressed. So the mechanic that we have brought from Dungeon World into our game is the 2d6 mechanic. So 6 or less is a failure with consequences, descending in quality. 7 to 9 is a success, kind of at the median with a price to the success. And 10 and above is a success, but with great benefits and results. So what we have integrated from Dungeon World is mercurial magic rolls for any magic user. So if they decide to cast a mercurial spell, they can almost name the effect that they're trying to accomplish with the spell. But then they have to roll the 2d6 qualifier. And if you get it like a 2, you're talking demons appearing and attacking you. If they cast more than one mercurial spell per day, they receive a -1 on their subsequent 2d6 mercurial roll. So each time they do it, they're pressing the boundaries of magic further, and they like really induce a lot more risk. You get to a -2 on a 2d6, man, you're looking at disaster zone. And if it's an act of desperation, especially, the players are in trouble, and then you accidentally summon demons and stuff, like, not cool, bro. But it places a tremendous amount of power in the character's hands, lets them continue to work with spells that they know and love and have researched, but lets them occasionally kind of go bonkers. We have pulled Spellburn out, and we've stuck to the 5th edition spell lists, and I think everyone's really happy about it. So, you know, just because you read a book doesn't mean you know everything about it. You gotta keep reading the book. Dragon P tea, suggested to me by one Ed Greenwood. Okay. Now, finally, this is sort of update to book reviews. No, I'm not going to update my Shadowrun review. Wouldn't be prudent. Also, way back when, geez, it must have been January or so, I did a review on this notorious tome, of course, which we all know and love, the 5th edition DMG. I basically got hammered and looked through this book and trolled it. And in the last 2 weeks, partially at the behest of one of my players who is a fantastic rules troll, and also just to get the game more precise and pull it more together, we now have our players have a town that they're ruling, so I needed some good, consistent, and easy to run town rules so they can craft items and train followers and so on and so forth. Now that all that's happening, I needed to get back into the DMG 5th edition book. Now, when I first looked through this, I thought, this is pretty lightweight on actual content. It's kind of junky. But looking again, actually, there's some really nice little nuggets in here. Now, they screwed up some areas, like the furniture table, get out of here. And the trap section's terrible. They still actually never tell you how to run a good encounter in this book. There's a couple of tips here and there that are kind of fun, but they really never get down to how do you actually play the game well. So I would like to see that in one of their books. I think it'd be cool if they had like a techniques or a encounters book that talked more about how to actually do it. They give you a lot of building blocks, but then they don't give you the blueprint to build the building. Now, on the flip side of that, some of the villain motivation stuff in here, the random dungeons and some of this stuff, it's really great. And you don't have to use it to build encounters for your players on the spot and prove how awesome the tables are. Just when you're working on your DM book by yourself, it can be a really handy tool in case you're drawing a blank, which I know you're drawing a blank because you're a mortal human being. I had a huge creative block last week. I couldn't do a damn thing. I was a brick. My first response to it was to try harder, and then just got worse and the block got worse. So, it's just like Mama always said, when you're tired, go to sleep, right? So if you're ever suffering from a creative block as a dungeon master, just rest. It is creatively demanding to do this really well and to continue to wow your characters with story, with game mechanics. I mean, you're a game designer, you're a party host, you're a researcher, and you're a devious trickster all at once. And doing that week after week is draining, man. Either the gameplay and the ideas are going to get stale, or the worst thing is that you'll feel like, well, I'm out of ideas and I'm losing it, and you quit, and then the group dissolves, and that's just terrible because everyone wants to make it to 10th level. Minotaur wine, made from the whining of a minotaur. The magical dragon cup of many beverages, so each time you sip it, grasswood ale, there's a different beverage inside. Actually, that'd be an awesome item for your party, is a cup of sipping. And every sip is a random beverage, all the way down to potions of healing or fire breath or poison. Be kind of fun. Minor digression there. We're in the Lair of Knowledge. In the Lair of Knowledge, we speak of books. And so, for my final speaking of books item, I have momentous news. A lot of you guys know that I'm a true believer in being a DM in a single book. This is everything you need to run your game. Not a ton of 3x5 cards, not a DM screen, not a clipboard, not all kinds of stuff, but it's all contained right here. It adds mystique to the game, it keeps your thoughts simple, and it keeps the table cleaner. I mean, this is great to have on the game table. You just have your one clean little book, you got your candle, and oh man, yeah, feels so cool, man. I got my Council of Coosbane hat on, and I got my book, and I'm like, yes. Okay. So when you do these, there's another great thing that happens. You get to the end. So I have finally reached the end of my first campaign book for Dungeons and Dragons. So there's the sort of the final illustration is the siege engine, Florian facing the siege engine. And in recent times, finishing the book, I've been drawing some more. So I got into drawing out more character portraits,
just for fun, you know, and then all my usual garbage that I do. Drawing dice is always fun. It's a really good piece in here. Milo, our wizard. Oh yeah, you know, you always got to draw like cool skeletons. And a great piece, portrait of Milo, our wizard, who started as such a good guy from the Shire, and he's really become like a harbinger of terrible power. Anyway, I finally finished this book. This book now, I had to gather some information from this book. We have play mechanics that are still in play, so I don't want to be looking at two different books. Remember, one book. So I had to gather those up and transcribe them, and my viewers, my friends, my players, my adventurers, my fellow dungeon masters, I present to you the second book of Drunkards and Dragons. This is a cool collector's edition journal from BlizzCon that my buddy Logan brought to me from BlizzCon last year, and it has cool like Stormwind art in it. Yeah, man, if you're gonna be a dork, just go all the way. Like really, really good paper in this book, and you get your Uniball gel. You know, I'm really picky about pens because I'm a nerd that way. And this paper takes this ink just like crazy pants. Man, does it work good. So while we were at Ren Fair, I like sketched this tent. Anyways, this is exciting. I know this may seem like silly stuff, but here in the Lair of Knowledge, one book. It's all about one book. And when you go from one to another, man, it's just momentous. It's over the decades, you have tons of these things. And people think you're a serial killer or something when they find them all after you're dead and gone. It got dark. The Council of Coosbane is known to hit its hats on the many shelves in the Lair of Knowledge. Another sip from the cup of sipping. Smokewood Stout, made by the Thunderhome dwarves, who live in Thunderhome. Anyways, that's about it from the Lair of Knowledge, you guys. So I just wanted to update you on some of the books and mechanics that we use in our game. And remember, book reviews are never over. Keep working on those books. There's a lot to absorb in these big guys, and a lot of smart people put a bunch of effort into making them. So don't just read it once and stick it on the shelf. Like, pull that baby down when you're drawing a blank and get some cool new ideas. I'm gonna be here in the Lair of Knowledge. I'm gonna work on some more mechanics here. All right, guys, give me the thumbs up. Please leave your comments down below what you think about DCC Magic, what you think about Dungeon World, and thanks a lot for watching. Good to have you here on Drunkards and Dragons, and we've got a lot more adventures ahead, so I gotta get to work here in the Lair of Knowledge. And strength, honor, and books. See you next time. Salisbury sauce. The frenzied fire potion of Fandelver. Brown bag beer. Lizard port. Monkey meat.